You lift me up, you set me free.
What up, MV peeps? Eagle here, and it is time for my 2025 building the bag slash in the bag slash early season, whatever you want to call it. I actually already played one tournament this year, but I have dissolved that bag and put it back in this stash for the sake of this video. So I have some familiarity with what I'm throwing this year, but I'll bring you guys along for the journey. And we're basically here just to nerd out about gyro. I know whenever one of my teammates posts about what they're throwing, I always click on it because I love hearing about what they're throwing, what molds they like, etc. So I don't think you guys are much different, honestly. I feel like the MV peeps love to nerd out, and that's what this is all about. Without further ado, let's get into it. Oh yeah, first, shout out to the new Voyager bags here. I'm gonna be giving them a try. This is the large, and this is the slim. I've actually already played some rounds with the slim, and it's super nice, especially casually, because it holds about 16 discs comfortably, so when I don't need full capacity, I really like this. And I'm gonna be giving a try to the large right here. Really like the colorway on this one, and of course, the atmosphere that it provides. All right, without further ado, let's get to the discs. First off, speaking of James Conrad, I putt with a Nomad. After 1 year of being on MVP, I don't plan on switching anytime soon. Absolutely love the Electron Firm Nomad. It is a straight putter with just a little bit of fade. Doesn't have quite as much glide as, say, a Pixel, but it also has just a little bit more overstability. So for my putting style, which is just flat to a little bit of hyzer, I can pop it in there, count on a little bit of fade. You know, since it's a little bit more, I wouldn't say call it overstable putter, but it has good wind fighting capabilities, generally speaking. So it's just a great all around putter. Feels very comfortable in the hand. I like the fact that it has a, I would say, small to moderate size bead on the rim. Really like it just because it fits very comfortably on my finger. And you know, the Nomad's a great putter. And if you haven't tried one, I highly recommend it. James, you did good. All right, next up, this is a disc that I absolutely love, the Cosmic Neutron range. I was throwing the Eclipse version when it first came out and absolutely loved the Eclipse, and I guess I can kind of compare the two right now. Honestly, they fly almost identical. The Eclipse has a little bit more of a gummy feel, where the Cosmic Neutron definitely is a little bit firmed up, which is a aspect that I requested when we were designing this disc. Really like how it firmed up a little bit, especially because I'll be using this a lot in the summer. But honestly, if you like the Eclipse version of the range, you're gonna absolutely love the Cosmic Neutron. And shout out to the MVP art department. They absolutely killed this stamp, sending out the Elemental series in style. This is an immediate staple in the bag. As soon as I felt it, it's not going anywhere. Absolutely love the Cosmic Neutron range, which should be coming out pretty soon. I don't know the exact release date. I'll put it right here. I think it was announced. So you can get it at your favorite retailer at this date. All right, next up, I'll also be incorporating some discs that will be in my backups, and I'll definitely throw these discs a lot on specific courses. One disc that I think is very underrated and I have really been enjoying throwing, but certain courses it just doesn't necessarily get a spot just because I won't throw it very often. But say like a wooded course, this disc will be incredible, and that is the Neutron Spin. It is like a glitch, but even flippier. I can throw it on a hyzer. It's going to pop up, drift to the right. I already know that a lot of wooded courses we play, I'm thinking of one course in particular, Shelton Springs. There's a lot of like straight hyzer flip putter shots through the woods that you want to start out on a lot of hyzer and just gradually flip as the fairway progresses. And I'm really looking forward to throwing a spin on those shots. It's like a super beat-in putter out of the box. Absolutely love this. I'm actually gonna put the backup discs, or not backup, but the sideline discs in this bag for the sake of this video. All right, next up, I'm fingering through some Watts right now. The Watts a great disc, but with the spin and the range, I feel like it's not something that I necessarily need in my game right now, especially since I'll throw, surprise, the Envy for that slot. So I actually have a bunch of different Envies that I've been messing around with. This is a Proton Envy that I absolutely love that really flies more like a proxy. This is a proxy Envy, and this is one that definitely comes out when it's more technical style course. So this might not be in the bag all the time, but a fair amount of the time. But the Envies that are going to be really competing for a spot in the bag are the, obviously, Rebirth Envy, which I really like. This is a great approach putter. I don't take it off the tee very often just because when I first joined MVP, I was a little bit ignorant on how different plastic shaped up, and the Prism Proton actually molds up just a little bit taller than I was expecting. So for those off the tee shots, it's a little deep for my hand, but I still really like it for more standstill shots where I can kind of throw the nose up, get a little bit of stall and overstability. This one will definitely be on the sideline, ready to play in the game, but the main ones I'm leaning on now are the Cosmic Neutron Envies. They're probably the more overstable version of the Envy out of the whole lineup, and they just feel really great. This is what I was throwing at Memorial, and I think this is probably going to get the Envy spot for the year, generally speaking. It's really great because I can throw virtually any approach shot with it. I love that it's slightly overstable, very dependable. You can even forehand it. So Cosmic Neutron Envy is probably the winner for me going forward. Next up, Neutron Stabilizer. It's a notch up from the Envy, a little bit slower, but also a little bit more overstable. I like this for little forehand approaches and shots where I need to fight the wind a little bit more than the Envy. Honestly, with the Cosmic Neutron Envy, I feel like the stabilizer might be getting a little bit phased out, but I definitely want to keep the stabilizer in my backups for when I'm on the road, just because you never know when you might need it. But I think I had it in the bag in Arizona and I threw it a few times and it did get me out of trouble. So I'm gonna put it in the bag. All right, next up, we're looking at the Tempo. There has been 4 releases of the Tempo so far, but the one I'm gonna spotlight is the brand new Jeremy Koling Particle Glow Proton, which feels really great. It's the stiffest version of the Tempo thus far and very enticing for me to try out. I honestly don't know if this will make the bag or not. I haven't thrown it enough to. From what I have seen of it, it's very comfortable. It's consistently overstable, but it doesn't dump. It kind of glides out. It's a really comfortable feeling disc in the hand, both forehand and backhand. And certain courses, say like Brewster Ridge, like hole 1 or hole number 5, there's so many holes at a course like Brewster where I could justify having a disc like this in the bag. But other courses, you know, there's discs that I'm about to talk about that will service my game a little bit better, but I think I want to have this in my backups just in case I feel like there's a shot on a course that demands a Tempo. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Germ throws this, as well as what other releases come in the Particle Glow Proton, because it feels really, really nice. Okie dokie, we got the Paradox. The Paradox might come out every once in a while just because it's absurdly flippy. It could be a really good utility disc in the woods, but probably not. We have the Detour, which is really nice, but not something I necessarily have a use for. Have the Proton Hex. This is actually pretty beat up, pretty understable. Really like it, but my favorite version of the Hex has been the Neutron Hex. I absolutely love the plastic. I feel like in general they're a little bit more overstable for me. I picked up a Neutron Hex kind of midway through last year, and for me it was just the Hex I was looking for. There's also these R2 Neutron, which also fly very nice, very similar to the standard Neutron. And then there's the Fission one that also flies pretty well, kind of close to the Neutron, maybe a little bit more understable, but the Neutron Hex, definitely my favorite overall mid-range from MVP. It gets a slot in the bag. The other one, I'll just talk about briefly. I believe it was an OTB open release. It's a Proton Soft Hex that actually feels really nice, that I was throwing a little bit, that could get a little bit of play time, but you know, Neutron Hex is definitely my hex of choice. All right, after the Hex, we have the Reactor, which I was really liking for a period of time, and I do really like it, but this new disc came out, and I feel like it's going to be my go-to mid-range, especially when the newer versions come out that are a little bit straighter, and when I actually beat in the current version I have. It's the balance. The balance is an absolutely incredible disc, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it actually straighten out, because it'll be really nice when you compare it to the first version here, which is pretty overstable. Honestly, it flies kind of like a Pyro, but actually I am in favor of the balance over the Pyro personally for my game, because for me the Pyro is an incredible disc and probably one of the best forehand approach discs or forehand mid-ranges you could ask for. But for me, it didn't really release all that well on a backhand, whereas the balance just, it has the perfect balance of forehand and backhand. So this is actually a 170, which I actually kind of like the lighter weight because it straightens it out a little bit. As this thing beats in, it gets better and better, and I like the fact that I could throw it on a little bit of Anheuser and it'll fight out, or anytime I put it out right, it has a decent amount of glide, so it's gonna come back left. It's just a great mid-range, and I could honestly see myself throwing almost exclusively balances for mid-ranges, other than the Hex, because the Hex, like I said, is kind of like a fairway driver. So balance and Hex, a match made in heaven. And there are a few more mid-ranges that I will cycle in, like, for example, the Pyro. The Pyro has the boot for me because this one mid-range I've really been loving, and I don't know, there's just something about it. I really love the Runway. The Runway is kind of a more blunt mid-range, and it feels a little bit slower than a Pyro, a little bit more overstability. You know, it just it's kind of exactly what I want for those consistently overstable, dumpy forehands, those dumpy backhands, and you know, it just feels really nice. And I can't really speak more on it, but it's definitely an underrated disc in the MVP lineup that, you know, I didn't think I'd like as much as I did. I would have assumed a year ago that I'd go immediately to the Deflector and Pyro, but the Runway is the middle ground between those two. So the balance kind of overlaps a little bit, but this definitely doesn't have as much distance and a little bit more overstability. So, you know, the Runway's sweet. I highly recommend the Runway to people who haven't tried it. Next up is a Deflector. I was just hyping up the Runway, but I still have a Deflector just because it is massively overstable, utility disc even, that it needs to be in your backups when you're traveling, just because you never know when that one hole where you need extreme overstability or the wind picks up. It's just so dependable. I kind of gauge the course in practice whether I need the Deflector in the bag or not, or look at the forecast, see what the wind's doing, and if the wind picks up or there's just a specific hole, or you know, we're playing in very woodsy conditions where I need to throw like these crazy panning S shots, either forehand or backhand, then the Deflector will go in the bag. Otherwise, it's going to be on the sideline, but you never know. You never know when it's gonna be called upon, because it is extremely useful. I absolutely love the Deflector when I need the Deflector. All right, next up, the Signal. It's a disc that I consider having in the bag if I need some trick shot or utility, but more often I am reaching for the Streamline Ascend. Very underrated disc here. I primarily use it for rollers. I actually use it a lot for like forehand flip-ups in the woods, or any sort of crazy trick shot where I need a ton of glide or a quick flip up. I absolutely love the Ascend. It covers a lot of slots for me, and while it is very understable, I think a good metric of an understable disc is how versatile it is, and I feel like the Ascend can be used in many different instances, not just for rollers, and that's why I like it, just because it can cover so many different bases, and the Ascend is absolutely incredible. I throw it in neutron, and yeah, this one's kind of one that goes in and out of the bag depending on the course, but for the sake of this video, it's in the bag. It's in the bag all day. Okay, moving on. Some other discs that are cool that I want to give more time to is the Relay. I feel like this could be actually a really good disc, but I haven't Relay given it much time, so I'm going to explore that. These are pretty underrated, honestly. They are Eclipse Drifts. I know Joey Tamale is a huge fan of these. Haven't given them as much throwing time as I probably should, but you know, these are neutron drifts that are pretty nice. And this may shock some people, I actually only have one Crave in my collection. And obviously the Crave is an incredible disc, but when I first went to the warehouse in Michigan picking out discs, I grabbed a whole bunch of the Circuit Challenge Proton servos, and it just stuck. Like, the servo feels so good to me. I love the way the plastic feels with the Proton, and I have a good stash of them. And yeah, the Proton servo, staple in the bag, backhand and forehand. I really like it for forehand because I can throw it pretty hard on a slight hyzer and it'll pop up straight, get a little drift to the left, and then fade comfortably to the right. So it just it's really just a great all-around kind of woodsy fairway driver. Proton servo, I love it. I'm team servo, guys. I know the Crave is incredible. I'm not taking that away from it, but the servo is definitely a dark horse in the lineup, in my opinion. Favorite fairway driver of MVP right here, or let me just rephrase that. Favorite slower speed fairway driver, and probably my favorite, honestly, is the Eclipse Resistor. Eclipse Resistor, my goodness, it's so versatile. Some of them are extremely overstable, and if you get the right ones, some are actually pretty much dead straight, and I have one in between. I usually carry two to three resistors just because it's my go-to. Like, this one's more closer to, honestly, a servo, but this one is borderlining like a more usable flare, so to speak, but obviously a little bit slower. Forehand and backhand, I'm carrying a bunch of these. And honestly, you know, I have the Eclipse servos, but I honestly really like the Neutron servos as well. And I actually kind of want to use the Neutron opposed to the Eclipse for stiffness reasons. The Neutron's a little bit stiffer, and I generally like plastic just a teeny bit on the stiffer side. So this one's a little bit older version of the resistor, but I think this one's a little bit straighter. This one's definitely more overstable. I'm gonna try the Neutron resistors out this year. Of course, I'll be carrying some Eclipse ones as well, but for right now, I wanna give those guys a try. Next up, I'm thinking about putting this in the bag sometimes. It's kind of like a faster version of the Ascend. It is a Neutron Insanity that feels really good. I think it could be beneficial in some woods situations, so I'll put that on the sideline. Oh yeah, next up, we have a bunch of Proton Teslas. Tesla's incredible fairway driver. Probably one of my most thrown fairway drivers. I was throwing a Proton all last year, and I could be throwing a Proton this year, but I haven't really got that figured out. I have this sweet dyed EV Neutron Tesla that this is the current one that I was working with in Arizona, and it flies actually pretty overstable. So I think I'm going to devote myself to this Tesla for the time being, just because I feel like this one has a long life if I season it in correctly. So EV Tesla in the bag. Next up is honestly a disc that mirrors the Tesla pretty darn closely, is the Neutron Wrath. I don't know if it's okay to say this, but I'm gonna say it. The Wrath and Tesla, it's kind of potato. They're very, very similar. If you want to split hairs, the Wrath is a little bit more shallow. If you have a smaller hand, I think you might prefer the Wrath. I really like the Wrath. This one in particular, it is pretty straight to slightly understable. Great forehand and backhand. probably my most thrown woods disc, where I can just throw it nice and hard on a hyzer, pop it up to flat, get it to go pretty straight, or even drift it to the right. And then this one is a little bit more overstable, kind of like a Tesla, honestly. So this is one I carry in my backups. I was throwing it a little bit at Worlds. I parked hole 17 over the water at whatever that course is called, the golf course. This one will be staying in the bag because I have a good relationship with it. So we'll go kind of in and out of the bag depending if the course is wooded or not, but definitely a Wrath that I really enjoy throwing. Next up, we have the Fireball. This is an old patent pending one. Shout out Ritana. She drew Guts from Berserk on the back. A little bit gummier, not as overstable for a Fireball. This one's another one that goes in and out of the bag depending on the course. So this one is on the sidelines. It's kind of the backup to this disc, which is basically a one-off disc. It is a Neutron Motion, which does not fly like a Motion. Motions are usually extremely overstable, even more than a Fireball, generally speaking. But this one, for whatever, molded up to be almost like a Tesla. Yeah, it's kind of like a combination of a Tesla and a Wrath for me. It's my most comfortable forehand disc because it can just go nice and straight and get a consistent finish to the right, and I even am starting to throw it backhand a little bit more. This is definitely my go-to forehand disc without a doubt, and the fact that it's been in the bag for almost a year. This is actually one of the first discs I got from MVP. I actually bought this one on Amazon when I was in the process of making the switch and giving the discs some testing. So this is a special one. Absolutely love it, and you know, it's kind of a one-off. I actually have a backup here that feels really close to it. Maybe it was just a specific run, so I'm kind of hoping that this one's going to be a little less stable. So this is a backup. I sure hope that I never lose this one because it is really, really special. Next, we have a Eclipse Flare, which honestly I prefer to the Neutron because it is slightly less overstable. Still extremely overstable utility disc, but this one right here, I was throwing it for a bit last year, and oh my goodness, it is unbelievably overstable, which I'm sure it'll have a use case for it, but for most rounds where I need a utility style disc or just something really overstable, the Eclipse Flare works really well. Really like the way the rim feels in my hand. And yeah, the Eclipse Flare, it's great utility disc, backhand and forehand. Okay, I'm gonna speak vaguely on this disc because that's what I've been told to do, but I have been given the green light to talk a little bit about it, and that is the new Streamline disc called the Boost. The Boost is a fairway driver, probably a little bit faster fairway driver, kind of in between, say, a Tesla and maybe even Trail, kind of in that realm. And my hopes for this disc is that it's going to take out all the discs or in the fairway driver slot that I just talked about. It feels absolutely incredible. It's actually going to be approved pretty soon. It might be approved by the time you are watching this, but absolutely love this disc. And I'm going to be putting it in the bag. Like, I'm very excited about it. I haven't thrown it all that much, but what I have used it for, it's been great. And it's going in the bag. Boost it up, baby. That's all I can speak on the subject right now. I'm very excited for when there's more information, but that's what I got right now. All right, Photon. I really want to give this this Fission Photon a try because it's a little bit more overstable, because the other Photons I have are great, but they're so overstable, which is a good thing, but there's kind of an overlap because the next disc in the lineup is the Thrill, which is one of my signature discs, and I absolutely love it. So if I do end up throwing an 11 speed, I'm going to try out this Fission. Shout out to Raven Newsom. He hooked it up with this one because he thought I'd like it. Yeah, I want something that's just long and straight, but still controllable, and I think this Fission Photon could potentially be that disc. It'll be on the sideline. All right, I talked about it. The Neutron Thrill. aka Gaia. They brought it back from the dead. Absolute staple in the bag, forehand and backhand. It's an 11-speed driver. I can get a good amount of distance, but that rim width feels very comfortable to still keep it controllable. I'm looking to really season one in to kind of maybe do somewhat what this disc should do. I'd like to have as minimal molds in the bag as possible, so I want to simplify my bag. So if I can beat in some thrills and just have like 2 or 3 thrills to work as kind of my primary keep it in the fairway drivers. That's a new term, keep it in the fairway. It's not a fairway driver, but keep it in the fairway driver. Thrill all day, one of my favorite discs from MVP. Okay, next up, we have a step up from the Thrill. This particular time lapse is just extremely overstable and it makes its way in and out of the bag. Honestly, with the Thrill, I probably won't throw it all that much, but this disc is just so good. It's like so overstable, good distance, feels great. Yeah, it's on the sideline. Like I can't go anywhere without it because it's beautiful, feels great. Proton time lapse. Yeah, it's good. It's good. All right, here's some new territory. I am trying out this Plasma Octane, and I hope that I'm going to be throwing, I hope that I'm going to throw this disc. I plan on throwing the Octane a little bit more because now that I have my forehand back more or less, I need something that doesn't dump quite as much. And the Octane kind of is that disc. It's a little bit slimmer of a rim than say a Dimension, and it just feels a little bit better for more control forehands. And once I beat one up, we're playing a lot of wooded courses or courses where I want to throw just a slight hyzer, get it to pop up to flat, ride straight. And the Octane's a really good disc for that. And maybe even throwing it on some backhands could be in my future, but I got this in Arizona. Shout out Caleb. He used his spinner's money to pick me up this Octane. I appreciate it. Giving the Octane a try. Similar to the Octane, it's the same concept. I have this Neutron Panic that's lighter weight that I really like. It's pretty straight, honestly, so I've been kind of using this for what I'm hoping to use the Octane for, but this is kind of like a weird one-off Panic, so like I can't rely on it. But this is one that's in the bag for the time being. Another disc that's in that 13-speed slot, I'll show you 2 of them. It's similar, like if I get the right Octanes, these will probably get knocked out of the bag, but at the same time, like MVP has so many good drivers, I think it's kind of like an overlooked area for them, especially for power throwers. The Nitro is a really great disc that I've been throwing more and more. This is a patent pending one that is a little bit less overstable than some of the other Nitros you get. So I'm throwing this one for kind of the more technical drives that I don't need quite so much speed. And this one, shout out Jory Fly Dies, got Marco the Phoenix on this guy. So these 2 are always going in and out of the bag. Really like the option of the Nitro because I'll talk about it just a little bit on the next disc that is my go-to driver, and it's not leaving the bag anytime soon. But having a little bit of contrast, especially having a little bit smaller rim in certain instances, can really be beneficial to me. That's not to say that I don't absolutely love the next disc, which obviously you guys probably know what it is. Oh, I forgot about a disc. I'm gonna talk about this disc before I talk about my favorite driver. Oh gosh, there's another disc. I'm brain farting. All right, before I'm gonna talk about another different disc, other than that different disc that I was about to say, it's not the Nitro, it's the Energy. The Energy, when I'm driving in my van and I have a lot of extra room, I have an Energy in my bin, but my goodness, it is so overstable. Complete trick shot utility disc. This is the one that goes periodically in and out of the bag, but I can't justify giving it a slot just because it's just basically me carrying it around. But when I do need it, it's great. You basically can throw a grenade without throwing your grenade with the Energy. It's so unbelievably overstable. Easily, I'd say it's a top 5 most overstable disc I've ever thrown. Actually, maybe top 10. There's some crazy overstable discs out there now that people just make for the sake of being overstable. You know what I'm talking about. yeah, the energy's great, but it'll get a little playtime. All right, this is a disc that honestly it covers the same shot as the Dimension. It's the Delirium. The Delirium is kind of overlooked. I have some really nice ones, honestly. I have the one that people say is orange, but I see it as red. Potato. Comment down below, red or orange. Gosh, I'm starting that conversation again. But yeah, the Delirium, kind of, these ones, like I have two older patent pending ones that are domey and really nice. Like if I were to go do a distance comp, these would probably be ones that I throw. And then these ones are more or less, dare I say, water discs. But this was supposed to be a water disc. This one that I brought down to Arizona that ended up being absolutely incredible. Kind of flew like a slightly straighter version of one of my go-to Dimensions. And honestly, this one, for how good it was flying, I think I'll put it in the bag. It feels really nice. And yeah, the Delirium's kind of a disc that goes in and out of the bag. If it feels good, if it's the right course, if I want just a little bit less stability than the Dimension, then I'll go to the Delirium. It's a really good disc. Last but not least, we have the Dimension. Of course, the Wind Dragon. This is one that I was throwing last year. It's super beat up, really good roller disc, forehand bomber. This, I can probably get about 500 feet out of a forehand with this one now because it's so beat up. Gets a ton of glide. Yeah, the Dimension's in the bag. I have a good, these are all the backups I have of the Wind Dragon, but for me, the Wind Dragon's obviously a big bomber, but it's mostly for forehand and maybe rollers because it's definitely way less stable than other Dimensions like I'm about to show you. These are the Dimensions that I'm really looking forward to bagging this year. I'm throwing basically the only plastics the Dimension have been made in are Neutron and Fission. So I'm throwing mostly Neutron for my maximum distance as well as just wind fighter, all-around workhorse driver. I'll show you the ones that I'm planning on throwing. Yeah, these are the ones. I have a bunch of sweet Dimensions that I'll throw at some point, but you know, I'll show them all to you because they're all gonna go in the bag. I have this sweet cloudy Neutron one that's pretty overstable. This is a patent pending one that I was in the bag last year. It's actually pretty overstable. This is probably the disc that I'm most looking forward to throwing, and it's eluding me off the top of my head, but I'll put his Instagram handle here, who dyed the disc. He's actually from Finland. This is a patent pending Neutron Dimension Megumin from Konosuba, a really funny anime that I really like. That one's going in the bag. Oh gosh, I'm gonna need to audit the bag. I'm getting pretty tight here. I'll put one more in the bag, but obviously I was throwing this one all last year. This is Zoro from One Piece in the bag. Absolutely amazing. And this one, actually I'm missing one. This Dimension's a freak. This is so unbelievably overstable, this Dimension. Great utility. Yeah, this one's gonna be my main wind fighter. It's a lab second that I scribbled all on the bottom of. But yeah, this one's going in the bag. Oh, the cool thing about this bag, I forgot about it. I can take out I can put discs right here. I like to usually, that'll work perfect. I can put my utility discs in this slot here. And I'd say utility, the Flares utility, as well as the Ascend in this instance. And then we can fit everything very nicely now, very comfortable. Yeah, I covered pretty much all the discs that are going to be in my bag. If you made it through this video, you're a nerd and I love you for it. But yeah, that's what I'm planning on throwing for the 2025 season. Super stoked to be representing MVP. Absolutely love the discs, love the company. It's just been an absolute honor working with the guys, as well as interacting with the MVPeeps and Gyronauts. You guys are absolutely incredible. I feel completely at home, and thank you for your support. That's all I got for right now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, keep on dreaming and peace. Whew.